A beautiful night overlooking Toyota Field here in San Antonio, where the only thing hotter than the July temperature is the Local 11 San Antonio FC back at home as they open a 3-game homestand by welcoming in OKC Energy FC. Thanks so much for joining us. Along with Jeff Sheen, I'm Dan Weiss. It's great to have you with us. Jeff, 3 weeks ago, we were in Houston where we watched San Antonio FC suffer their worst loss of the season, 4-0 to Dynamo in the U.S. Open Cup. Since then, the team has rattled off 3 consecutive wins. What's been the biggest difference?
Well, I think it's 3 words. It's Frank the Tank. Well, maybe not Frank Teo all by himself, but we've seen him, Jacques-Francois. We've seen guys create offensive opportunities for San Antonio FC. Their back line throughout the season has been very good. They've gotten consistent play in front of the net from Josh Ford. So it just came down, could they get more than a goal a game? And in their last 3, they have absolutely had that happen with Frank the Tank really being the guy that the fans are most excited about.
Third and final meeting with OKC Energy FC. San Antonio FC has yet to win a game, so they certainly owe Energy one here tonight.
Yeah, I just wonder if OKC feels like they owe the USL one, because in their last game against RGV, they really should have won that game, left some goals out on the pitch, and usually when you're facing that kind of an opponent, they are going to be extra motivated, and they already know that they can win here at Toyota Field, so this is going to be a dangerous Energy team tonight.
Well, the heat is not keeping the supporters away here tonight at Toyota Field. They're filing in. Kickoff coming up next, San Antonio FC and OKC Energy FC here from Toyota Field.
We've worked pretty hard to become the world's largest independent refiner and to be America's 3rd largest producer of renewable fuels. But we've also worked hard to be named one of Fortune's most admired companies by giving over 125,000 volunteer hours a year, donating over 1 million pounds of food to local food banks, and building homes for Habitat for Humanity. To appreciate a company's true value, you have to understand the heart of its people.
When it needs to be ultra exciting, high flying, non-stop action, San Antonio FC Soccer's got you covered. When it needs to be high performing, hard working, high tech, super safe, built for comfort, and surprisingly affordable, Holt Cat has got you covered. With best-in-class Cat heavy equipment, engines, generators, and more, plus legendary service and support, and the largest parts inventory and distribution network in Texas. Kick it into high gear with Holt Cat.
Any question before we make jalapeno poppers?
Why is the market stressed like that?
Jalapenos are spicy, man. Gotta protect.
Why do they take so long to make?
Paris was not built in a day.
That was wrong.
Whatever.
Can I use my own knife?
No.
My oven mitt's too small.
That's not a question.
Why don't we just buy H-E-B jalapeno poppers? They're made by hand with cream cheese and thick sliced original bacon.
That sign doesn't say cooking with Timmy.
H-E-B jalapeno poppers. We make them so you don't have to.
Nothing pairs with a cold beer like summer. And nothing says summer like Stars basketball. Soak in all 3 with Dollar Drink Night every Friday home game, presented by Bud Light and the San Antonio Current. Tip off your weekend with a pregame happy hour at Rockin' Brews and stick around for dollar beers and sodas all game long. Head over to sastars.com for more info. Season presented by Christus Santa Rosa Health System and H-E-B.
Welcome back to Toyota Field. San Antonio FC back at home. They'll open a 3-game homestand tonight. All playoff teams coming to Toyota Field over the next week, and they begin with OKC Energy FC along with Jeff Sheen. I'm Dan Weiss. Great to have you along tonight. Let's take a look at starting 11 for both sides this evening, starting with the home side, San Antonio FC, and the biggest addition to the lineup tonight, Jeff, for San Antonio FC is Taylor Morgan is going to make his debut for San Antonio FC after being acquired from Tulsa Roughnecks FC back on June the 22nd.
Yeah, and the thing is, Dan, you look at the goal scoring that we talked about earlier. Taylor Morgan has been brought in to do one thing, and that is to score goals. They got it from Jason Johnson very early in this season, but they need to find it elsewhere, especially in the starting 11, and that's what Taylor Morgan is supposed to do.
The rest of the starting 11 remains the same as it was in San Antonio FC's last game against Tulsa Roughnecks. Take a look at OKC Energy FC, and their starting 11 tonight is much different, and it's more about who's not in the lineup, Jeff, than who is in the lineup. Danny Koenig, their leading goal scorer, he is not in the starting 11 tonight.
And I don't know how surprised we should be about that, Dan. This is a guy that missed 2 penalty kicks against Rio Grande. That's a game that they absolutely should have won. It kind of turned out to be a disaster for the Energy in their previous game. But, you know, that kind of statement where you sit a guy that could have won you the game, how intense is this OKC team going to be tonight, knowing that they blew their previous one?
Jason Johnson continues to lead the team in goals and tied for points. He's got 3 of them, Jeff, but he hasn't scored since going back to April the 30th against Tulsa Roughnecks FC. It'd be nice for him to find the back of the net here tonight.
And keep in mind, 2 of those 3 goals came in the very beginning of this season. The very first player to score goals for San Antonio FC was Jason Johnson. They started in Seattle, and that second goal was kind of just a fluke bounce, but I think it created a situation where San Antonio FC fans assumed that Jason Johnson was going to be this guy that was good for a goal a game, and maybe just that success early against Seattle might have put him in a position where it was kind of unfair expectations, but he is still very much a dangerous player because of his speed.
Well, underway at Toyota Field, along with Jeff Sheen, I'm Dan Weiss. Thanks so much for joining us. San Antonio FC with a record of 5-5-5. They are tied for 10th in the Western Conference right now with 20 points, even in games with Swope Park Rangers. OKC Energy tied for 8th in the West with OC Blues. 1 point ahead of San Antonio FC, but with 3 games in hand over OC Blues. In fact, the 13 games are the fewest of any team in the USL right now. We got a throw in here for OKC. And Taylor Morgan with his first touch of the game as he tries to maneuver through the midfield of OKC Energy FC. And Jeff, one of the things we're going to see tonight from OKC is they have a great back 4 that's anchored by their 2 center backs, Cyprian Hedrick and Cody Andrews. It's a back 4 that's played together an awful lot this year.
And their captain, Michael Thomas, had actually addressed that in some of their interviews throughout the week, that they feel that the strength that they're going to have against San Antonio tonight is in transition. They feel that that's where they can beat San Antonio FC. So we'll see if that plan actually comes to fruition.
And ironically, their wingbacks on the defense are a little bit different tonight. Kyle Hyland and Jacob Van Compernoli, who they just received back on loan from Swope Park Rangers a couple weeks ago. He's in the starting 11 tonight. Hyland with a throw in, and it bounces right down to Josh Ford. The San Antonio FC captain makes his first touch of the game.
I've asked many of these players, Dan, if they're okay with Josh yelling at them, because I think actually your goalkeeper actually has the best job of anyone on the soccer pitch, because he's allowed to yell at everybody throughout the game and showing that he is the leader. You know, obviously I asked many of the players in jest, but he's a guy that they absolutely trust. They know his level of talent, so not only are they expecting to be yelled at, but they trust him when he does yell at them, that what he's saying to them is right.
A good run by Jason Johnson results in a foul upfield. It's Cody Andrews who commits the infraction, and Johnson a little bit slow to get back up off the pitch here in the opening minutes of this one from Toyota Field. But again, that's the energy that you like to see from Jason Johnson. And we'll see again here as he Gets upended by Andrews there just outside the top of the 18 box, and a dangerous opening free kick here for San Antonio FC coming up.
And we're always going to see either Rafa Castillo or Carlos Alvarez take those free kicks. They basically split the corners, and you'll see these situations where they're going to ask their opponent, you guess which one of us is going to take the kick here. Very similar setup that we've seen all season long.
Victor Araujo also used to take these kicks, but he's done for the season. Torn ACL in the game against Colorado Springs Switchbacks FC back on June 18th. Alvarez and Castillo over the ball. Castillo bending one, and it's wide of Cody Lorendi. Jeff, these two teams last met May 21st here at Toyota Field. It was a 1-0 win for OKC Energy FC, as Colin Bonner got the game winner in that one. But I think the story of the game was Cody Lorendi in net for OKC Energy. He had 6 saves in the game, and if it wasn't for his efforts, I think San Antonio FC wins that game.
You use a hockey analogy of the goalie who stands on his head. That was what we saw that night, and it was very frustrating. I was actually in the Bud Light bunker that night, so obviously we saw Cody in front of us for a full half, and it was just like, how is he having this kind of a game? I think that there were a lot of fans that left Toyota Field that night feeling that San Antonio FC should have at least been able to get a tie based on their effort, if not for just the tremendous job that Lorendi did in that.
Good challenge there by Highland as he strips Milton Palacios. And here's the captain, Michael Thomas. He was the first ever signee by OKC Energy FC. Former draftee of the San Jose Earthquake, 19th overall back in 2010. Cyprian Hedrick also played in the MLS with Sporting KC as well. And here's Van Compernoli as he was looking upfield, and he was looking in the direction of Vucek Wojciech, who is on loan from Indy 11 of North American Soccer League. And he'll run up into the play along with Sebastian Dalcard and Jose Cuevas tonight. And you'll see OKC Energy kind of like to run a 4-3-2-1 formation, whereas, Jeff, you were pointing out earlier, San Antonio FC is more of a 4-1-4-1 here over these last couple of weeks.
Yeah, and it's just one of those things now in the modern game. If you could really put a label on it, I think that most teams, you just say they have a variable formation, that it changes not only throughout the season, but it can change throughout a game. So the way you start up, you might throw that out the window before it's even the end of the first half.
That clearance by Josh Ford sailed into the seats here, and that might be a factor tonight as it is hot, no question about it on the field. 93 the game time temperature. It feels like 100, but a stiff wind coming out of the southeast at 18 miles an hour at kickoff. And the flags are blowing all over Toyota Field, and that clearance by Josh Ford, good indication of where the ball might be sailing here tonight.
Yeah, we see the supporters groups with their flags up, and it's very, very easy to see the entire flag the way the wind is blowing right now. Although I don't know if anybody in the stands is feeling like the breeze is making them a little bit more comfortable watching the game right now.
Johnson on side here up the near side, and well defended by Kyle Hyland. The throw in for San Antonio FC, who again, they're starting to find their consistency, and we mentioned this at the top, the only exception being Taylor Morgan is the new addition. Starting 11 is exactly the same, and Jeff, it's been exactly the same now for the last 3 games for San Antonio FC.
And especially where they have been strongest has been on their back line, and we've seen even fewer changes there. The only one that you would look at is Sam McBride started there, and now it's Biko Bradnock Brennan. But how many times have we seen Milton Palacios and Stephen McCarthy and Greg Cochran in that back line? So it's not a surprise that the part of the team that has changed the least has shown the most consistency throughout the season.
Cochran's the team leader in minutes, 1,281 out of total 1,350 beginning play tonight, as he's appeared in all 15 games and has started 14 of them. As Highland up the near side and into the attacking third, OKC Energy FC. And again up front, Sebastian Dalgard and Jose Cuevas, the former Rookie of the Year in the USL back in 2012, will be their sharpshooters tonight, with, at least for now, no Danny Koenig in the starting 11. A throw-in drawn here as Highland coming quickly up into the play, looking to try to get Dalgard involved actively. Now it's Cuevas who will work it back out towards the midfield. Daniel Gonzalez sending it wide. Michael Harris coming up over on that right side.
Dan, you mentioned Cochran earlier and how many minutes he's logged in USL play, but here's a guy that was also in so many of those U.S. Open matches as well. I mean, this guy has been I got to say, the most reliable player in availability and performance when out on the pitch of anyone that's in the starting 11 and maybe all the way up and down the roster.
He, no question about it, has been probably, along with Stephen McCarthy, the two leaders, I would say, for San Antonio FC as far as bringing along what, no question, is a group that's been trying to find chemistry throughout the season, as everybody has come from all different walks of life and all different backgrounds here, as an injured Cyprian Hedrick is down on the pitch here for OKC Energy FC. But I mean, again, you know, that is that's a big thing when you consider, you know, you're trying, I think, for this team at the beginning of the year, it was a lot of on-field chemistry issues that I thought really were plaguing them.
And that's the thing. You look at when this team even began, you could make the case that San Antonio has been 3 months behind in all walks of the organization based on when we started playing soccer, when things got going in December of last year. So you look at what they've been able to do during this season, considering the late start in all parts of this thing. And I think that they can really build on, we're more successful than maybe people thought that we should have been up until this point. And I don't think it's a coincidence, Dan, that the last 3 games, you've won 3 games in a row, and before that, there was the tie. So this is a team that hasn't lost in, what, over a month?
Josh Ford begins the night 5-4-5, his record, as he has started in 14 games. He's allowed just 13 goals. He begins the night 5th among USL goalkeepers in save percentage, 7th in goals against average. Wojciech, as he was looking for Dalgard, and a deflection out of bounds. It'll be a throw in here for OKC Energy FC, which has started well territorially. You could say that in these first 10 minutes, possession has favored the visitors here.
Yet the best look that we've seen at the goal so far would definitely be for SAFC. So I don't think we've really gotten a sense of what this game is going to be yet.
Dalgard on side, as he'll track this in the corner. Centers in the box, headed, and Wojciech is a big body there in front, and he sent it over the net. Wojciech, 6'4", 190 pounds, from Poland, 2 goals on the season, and he's only played in 7 games for OKC Energy FC.
And Josh Ford on that last attempt, I was talking about him yelling at his teammates. He let out a real good one there. He did not like what his team was doing defensively, and felt that opportunity shouldn't even have been created.
Taylor Morgan for San Antonio FC, wearing number 12, and he's the type of player that I feel San Antonio FC has been missing all season. A big striker at 6'5", who can make a difference on those set pieces.
And also, maybe a guy that's playing some head games. We saw, was it Hendrick that was on the ground? Taylor walked over him and, you know, just stepped over him as he was laying on the ground. And Cody Andrews of OKC did not take kindly to that, and we even saw Cody Lorendi come up from where he was standing and kind of lobby the ref into, you know, is that the way this game is going to go? But kind of interesting that Morgan in his very first game would kind of bring that sort of, I don't know, let me try and see if I can get in your head a little bit. Let me see if I can get you to do something dumb because you don't like me.
He hasn't played since June 11th, so we'll see how many minutes he gets tonight, and probably be an ideal candidate for Frank Tayu to replace at some point in this game. Taylor Morgan, though, interestingly enough, he didn't play last weekend against Tulsa Roughnecks FC. I asked Darren Powell about that. He said him and David Irving, Tulsa Roughnecks FC head coach, had a gentlemanly agreement not to play Taylor in that game. I asked him, is that common in soccer? He says it is when you have gentlemen. Now, him and David Irving go back a long way. In fact, Aaron said he said at some point he thinks he even played for David Irving.
Well, I was talking to Darren earlier this week, and I was talking to him about Adrian Heath being fired as the head coach at Orlando City. Both Darren Powell and Tim Holt coming to San Antonio from Orlando. And, he, you know, again, Darren with a great relationship with Adrian Heath, but as he was talking about his his feelings on Heath getting fired. Definitely keeping the gentleman approach in his feelings, rather than maybe getting a little emotional about his friend being shown the door in what I think a lot of people that follow MLS or soccer in the United States felt was a more than unfair firing by the owners of Orlando City.
A little good combination play into the box by OKC Energy FC is cleared out of harm's way, and Michael Reed, who was the man of the match against Tulsa on Sunday, works it upfield, and he's got 2 goals in his last 2 games, coming on strong after an early season injury. This one gets over both Wojciech and McCarthy. Milton Palacios, also 2 goals on the season. We'll take it back in San Antonio FC's third of the field. We're in the 14th minute at Toyota Field, along with Jeff Sheen. I'm Dan Weiss. San Antonio FC back home. They'll be home for the next 3 weeks as they'll welcome in Vancouver Whitecaps FC 2 and Los Angeles Galaxy 2. Will come to town on July 23rd.
Well, these are the dog days throughout the country, but especially here in San Antonio. And one of the things that I know, Dan, that you've talked to Darren Powell about as well as I have, has been the heat and how that might actually be an advantage for his team because they're training in it, they're playing in it, and we're going to see a bunch of games in a row here at Toyota Field that are most likely going to be played in identical conditions to San Antonio FC, but for their opponents, maybe not so much. When you think of Los Angeles, same weather year-round, Vancouver coming in from Canada, so this could be a big advantage for SAFC moving along through this month.
Taylor Morgan made a run, but he was offside. And here back in the midfield, Michael Thomas. As he's looking in the direction of Dalgard, Palacios to it first. And upfield where Highland will settle it. And Palacios with a clearance back to the midfield. Cody Andrews. And poor play there by the captain, Thomas, and it's Morgan into the box, and he'll send it wide. Cyprian Hedrick got back, may have forced Taylor Morgan to shoot that one a little quicker than he wanted to. San Antonio FC's first attempt, though, at the net.
That's absolutely what happened. Taylor was definitely felt like he was forced into trying to make something happen there before he got the angle cut off, and I think it was the right decision. It was just that he didn't get it on close on goal as obviously he wanted to.
Taylor Morgan has spent the last 2 seasons playing in Scotland. He was drafted by Toronto FC in Major League Soccer back in 2013. He played on opening day for Toronto, and then he never played again. He went overseas to Sweden and stayed in Europe for the last 3 years before signing with Tulsa Roughnecks FC before the start of this USL campaign. Biko Bradnock Brennan, who's once again back in the starting 11 for the 7th time this season. He's really taken the spot, as you talked about before, of Sam McBride, whereas McBride started the first 11 games of the season for San Antonio FC, but he has not seen the starting 11 since. Danny Gonzalez will work it back off to the near side here as OKC Energy FC doesn't like what they have upfield, and will work it back to the 8th-year veteran Cody Lorendi, 27 years of age, his first season in Oklahoma City. He was in Austin a year ago, 2 seasons ago, playing for Los Dos.
Now, it's going to sound like I'm giving him a hard time, but I'm actually not, because the show is awesome. I think Cody looks like a character from Game of Thrones. I say that in a good, positive way. This is not as a negative.
Is it his hairstyle? What are you?
I think it's the beard more than the hair, but it's both.
Okay. Cyprian Hedrick will give it back to his goalkeeper, Lorendi. We talked about Josh Ford's numbers. Lorendi's 7th among USL goalkeepers in save percentage and 6th in goals against average. So 2 goalies who have given up either a goal per game or less in just about every single game this year. In fact, there's only 1 game that Josh Ford's given up more than 1 goal per game this season.
2 very good goalkeepers in this game tonight. And the thing with Lorendi, I mean, we've seen it firsthand. He obviously feels comfortable here at Toyota Field because he was the reason that his team walked away with 3 points earlier this year.
These are 2 teams that don't really score a lot, Jeff. OKC
Right.
Energy only has 16 goals on the season. It's the fewest among all playoff teams in the Western Conference, and 2nd fewest among all Western Conference teams. In fact, San Antonio FC, they only have 19 goals this year.
And 2 of their top guys are no longer with the team now. They've moved on elsewhere.
Yes, Dalgard, good run there. Sorry about that. Josh Ford came out to cut it off as
Smart.
Dalgard was making the run up front.
You know, Josh has definitely created a situation, Dan, where I think that sometimes maybe he makes the guys in front of him a little too comfortable, like Josh is going to pull it out for them, because we've seen now 2 different times where that was a lot closer, where an opportunity was a lot closer than it should have been for OKC, and it had nothing to do with Josh Ford. It was because of the players right in front of him.
There is no better captain, I think, for this team than Josh Ford, because of not only does he lead by example, but he's got his, what he refers to, a lot of liquid gold that comes out of his mouth during both practices and games.
Sure.
We'll get a foul here.
There's another one of those guys right there, with Greg Cochran being involved in that.
19th minute here at Toyota Field, and the action for the most part has been kept to the center third of the field. A couple of runs for OKC Energy FC. A couple of opportunities for San Antonio as Taylor Morgan stays onside, but he will not be able to get to this delivery by Stephen McCarthy. That'll be a throw in for OKC Energy FC.
I think Morgan is having a very good first game for San Antonio FC. He's been pesky, and most importantly, Dan, on that type of play, McCarthy did not give Taylor the right feed, but Morgan still pursued it and gave that extra effort. I think that's a good thing to show your teammates, I'm with you, I'm looking to get in sync and send it my way, and I'm going to try and make something happen, even if it's some garbage.
Cochran on the outside, and here's Miguel Salazar. He's been a key cog on this midfield here over the last couple of weeks. Is now McCarthy over the midfield line, trying to pop this one in the direction of Johnson, who settles it, but poor touch comes off him right to Dalgard. Johnson, though, takes it right away from Dalgard. Ran into trouble as the ball deflects back to Milton Palacios, who sails this one high dangerously into the box, but Cody Lorendi will sky to get it. Carlos Alvarez charging hard, looking for perhaps a miscue from the goalkeeper.
And those are the tough ones, because that ball hangs up there so long. Lorendi wants to be right there, and he's in a good position. But because it gets held up for so long, that can create an opportunity for an offensive player. In this case, it would have been San Antonio FC.
Taylor Morgan's going to get a yellow card here as he upends Jacob Van Compernoli. And for Taylor Morgan, that is his 4th yellow card this season. He had 3 of them in his 12 games with Tulsa Roughnecks FC here, and Van Compernoli is down on the field, and he's going to be requiring some attention from the medical staff.
Well, Dan, these are the kind of things that happen very early in the game, and I pointed it out. It was Taylor that was stepped over Hendrick that was lying on the ground, and you had Cody Andrews that came over, Lorendi came over, I think Kyle Highland was also, all of them making the point to the ref of, is this the way the game is going to go? And those are the kind of things that stick in a ref's head. So not saying that that wasn't the right call there, but you're in the crosshairs right there, and you're not going to get the benefit of the doubt when you're going to get into a physical encounter with your opponent.
Van Compernoli will walk upfield here, and will stay off the field at least for now, as he walks back in the direction of his bench. He's got a pass in front of the San Antonio FC bench, and Darren Powell, as he makes his way back over to the side where Jimmy Nielsen calls the shots for OKC Energy FC. Rafa Castillo celebrated a birthday. He's now 36 years of age, but don't tell him that. He plays like a 26-year-old.
Well, I think sometimes Rafa would like to point out, no, I'm 36 and I'm still doing this. So in any professional sport, that is quite the age. But here in San Antonio, where we've been watching the Spurs play the same guys since the 90s, perhaps if there was ever a city for 36 not to be considered all that old, it's right here in the Alamo City.
Michael Reed was trying to maneuver his way around Cyprian Hedrick and was overly aggressive and threw Hedrick down to the ground and commits the foul. But Rafa Castillo, a goal and an assist, and I mean, his goal was a thing of beauty on that April night against Tulsa from distance about 30 yards out, and just perfectly placed into the back of the net behind Alex Mangles.
He's a spark plug, and he's the guy in practice, Dan, that's always talking, always keeping the chatter going for his team. And especially when you reach the dog days, those are the guys that you want to kind of keep things exciting, keep things lighthearted and fun.
The last game I did against Colorado Springs Switchbacks FC, I thought in the second half, once Victor Araujo got hurt, it was Rafa Castillo's intensity that really awoke the team and kept them playing here, as we've got fouls going all over the place here right now, and it's Rafa Castillo who's not happy with our referee Jonas Marachi on the call. It'll turn into a free kick for OKC Energy FC, and Jeff, you know, that intensity is starting to show here on the field between these two teams, who of course they've got a bit of a history, having played each other a couple of times already in this season, and it almost feels good because the game certainly needs something to pick it up here at this point.
Absolutely, and you're talking about a team in San Antonio FC that's won 3 games in a row. They haven't lost in their last 4. They want this game. They want it because it's at home and because they feel very confident that they're a good team. Meanwhile, OKC's coming into this game feeling like that they should have another win on their record. That leads 2 teams that are going to have equal levels of intensity, and that's what we seem to be seeing so far in the first 24 minutes.
Another foul in the midfield. He overturned to a free kick for San Antonio FC, as just a moment ago was Michael Reed who was trying to thread that ball through to Taylor Morgan. So, I mean, they're looking for the big 6'5" striker here early, trying to get him engaged, as now Carlos Alvarez will spring Greg Cochran to the outside. Cochran will deliver this one across the box over Lorendi, who's down. Jason Johnson picks it back up. Top of the box, Castillo. Back in here to Michael Reed as Castillo goes down, and then Reed stripped of the ball. But a lot of activity there in the OKC Energy box. And it all started when Cody Lorendi couldn't come up with that ball cleanly on the service by Greg Cochran. And there have been players that have been pushed, tripped, shoved, you name it, all over the field here in this first half.
Good through by Cochran, liked what he did there. If there's one thing that maybe could be criticized, maybe JJ waiting a little too long there to set it up perfectly. That's something that happens when teams have had success scoring, and you've seen that in their last couple of games, that you try and create the perfect scenario rather than perhaps let it rip, and JJ kind of waiting for it there rather than maybe, as Lorendi was still on the ground, try and get a quick kick on goal.
As Wayne Gretzky always says, you miss 100% of the shots that you don't take.
I think that's our second hockey reference of tonight, Dan. Not that that should be a surprise from the two of us, but nonetheless.
Onside, here's Michael Reed back into the box, shot, save. And Lorendi was tall there. And a good touch by Michael Reed to open himself up there outside into the 18. And now a little bit of momentum push for San Antonio FC these last couple trips upfield. As Dalgard's onside here, sends it back into the middle, shot, and a great save diving by Josh Ford, turns away Wojciech.
And Josh is all up in Biko Bradnock Brennan's face about what just happened there. He was not trying to take anything away from OKC in that spot, but again, that's 3 chances that the Energy have had, and at each point, Josh Ford is yelling at his back line, saying, you shouldn't have been where you were. Get your head in this game. And Josh Ford has certainly shown that he knows what he's doing and feels he knows where his defensive players should be in front of him, and they've let him down now 3 different times, but Josh Ford has been equal to the task of keeping the ball out of the net.
27th minute here at Toyota Field. We've had 3 chances now over the last minute or so. And again to the outside as Cochran pops this one into the air, and that wind is going to play a little bit of a factor here tonight as far as how long the ball holds up, and Jason Johnson will be called for the foul. And it's a free kick for OKC Energy FC.
Well, back and forth these two teams go. We've gotten it a great game so far, and if this is the first game that you've ever seen at Toyota Field, you might tell your friends, yeah, there were no goals scored in the first 28 minutes. Oh, that must have not been very good. Oh, no, it was great. It's actually, I got to come back.
And this is something I think typical as the summer goes along, that the wind some nights definitely becomes a little bit of a stiffer breeze. You know, San Antonio FC played a game in Colorado Springs back in April where they were dealing with 50-mile-an-hour gusts in that game, and that ball was havoc all night for all the players on the field. But tonight, certainly, you can tell teams are trying to take advantage, I think, of the ball being held up in the air a little bit to see who makes the mistake and who can capitalize.
Absolutely, and we haven't actually seen many set pieces so far in this game. So as things move along and maybe those opportunities present themselves, is that something that one of these teams can take advantage of? Because that really seems where you might be able to take advantage of the win the most.
And to your point, no corners yet in this game as we're approaching the 29th minute. San Antonio FC, a win tonight, which would not only be their 4th in a row, but would actually vault them into playoff position for the first time since the opening weeks of the season. There's Johnson back into the attacking third here. Nifty footwork as he gets around Thomas. Good ball for Taylor Morgan, but he just can't get to it. He stayed onside, but he was kind of turned inside out on that through ball, and Morgan just couldn't get to it.
That is a play that if that happened even next week, that's a goal. That's about sync and which side are you coming to, and a little bit of hard luck there as well. But nonetheless, another very good look for San Antonio FC.
And they're really driving hard now as Johnson gets the ball from Michael Reed. Johnson, top of the box, and trying to deliver as it's blocked aside. San Antonio FC with some quality scoring chances here in the last couple of minutes is a good challenge by Miguel Salazar as he works the ball away from Vucic Wojciech, and San Antonio FC will regain possession. So whereas Jeff possession, I thought, was in OKC's favor to start the game, it's quickly turned here into the San Antonio FC side of things.
And the interesting thing is, Dan, even though the momentum and possession might be in favor of one team, we have seen scoring chances even when the other team doesn't have as much possession. That was close.
Great ball by Johnson. And I wonder, too, with Taylor Morgan, again, he hasn't played since June 11th, so conditioning, no question, especially when you consider the heat and humidity tonight. I mean, that's going to clearly come into play. But head of the defender there for OKC Energy trying to get the clearance.
Even though that wasn't a set piece, that was kind of like a de facto corner opportunity from Castillo. Obviously, he was a little bit closer in on that, but he had a chance to step back and really set it up. And in that case, trying to create an opportunity, it goes through to JJ. Again, if San Antonio FC continues to get those kind of opportunities, you just feel like, as good as Lorendi has been, particularly against SAFC, that this might be a situation where eventually they would get one in.
This is Sebastian Dalgard. He did it. He not only took the ball in the head, to be more specific, he took the ball in the face, and he might have a nosebleed or some sort here as he gets some medical attention coming out as the striker was coming back into his defensive third of the field there.
Yeah, it definitely looks like, at first I thought maybe even got a tooth knocked out, but it looks like he's just going to the nose.
So now Dalgard will come over here for some attention, and it's been a couple times in this game where OKC Energy FC has played a man down for a couple of minutes here because of injuries that have taken some of the players off the turf.
Well, the thing with blood, and we see this in many sports, including soccer, that they're not going to, whoa, that was an interesting throw in there.
And a deep one here as it comes through in the direction of Cuevas, who gets a good volley on it, but nobody home on the outside. And easily cleared from danger by San Antonio FC.
Dan, I know I kind of cut my own sentence off, but I've never seen that kind of a throw-in where you do the full somersault into the throw.
Somebody for Colorado Springs Switchbacks FC was also doing that a few weeks ago, too. We saw that here at Toyota Field.
Maybe it's something about San Antonio that brings it out of their opponents.
Flair for the dramatics, no question about it.
Hey, people pay money to see these games. Give them something that they want to see.
Wojciech. Cuevas lets it go, but it never came through to Michael Thomas, the captain. San Antonio FC with some room to operate back in the midfield as Michael Reed will spring Carlos Alvarez on the outside. As Alvarez coming full steam ahead into the attacking third. Alvarez continuing to go with Rafa Castillo before they ran into a crack. Play happened with some, again, terrific footwork to get by the defender. Kyle Highland, he left him in his tracks as he worked along the touchline there.
And he visually finished my sentence, but then you get an opportunity like that with a one-on-one where you can create a chance.
Dalgard couldn't keep it in play, and Milton Palacios will take the throw in here for San Antonio FC. Approaching the 35th minute here in the first half, and it was a little bit of a slow start tonight at Toyota Field, and then the chances came fast and furious for both sides, but here over the last 10 minutes, it has really been San Antonio FC that has put the pressure on OKC Energy FC.
And give OKC credit for as many chances as OKC has, or as San Antonio FC has had, they've still managed not to score.
Morgan, as he's defended there by Danny Gonzalez, and will give it back to Carlos Alvarez. We'll send it back to the midfield. McCarthy, a little bit of room here developing in the attacking third. Lofts that one back in the direction of Carlos. Alvarez, service into the box for Jason Johnson. He was there, he was brought down in the 6th, and no foul. Jason Johnson is livid as he thought he got hauled down in the 6-yard box, and there was no call.
Well, he felt so confident about it that after he lobbied the ref, he also lobbied to the sideline.
He might have a case there. Kyle Hyland certainly had 2 hands at least on the back of Jason.
Darren Powell also given an earful from the sideline.
So we play on scoreless in the 36th minute. And now Michael Harris on the outside for OKC Energy FC, which has not had a lot of possession in the attacking third here over the last few minutes. Wojciech.
But they still did have an opportunity despite the fact that they haven't had possession during that time. So this is not the time for the back line of San Antonio FC to feel like, well, we've got the momentum and let down. That's what Josh Ford has yelled at them about quite a few times in this game already.
Cody Andrews will turn it to the outside. Michael Harris coming upfield. Cuevas for Wojciech. And they try to play combination, and they'll get it through as Jose Cuevas gives it back to Wojciech, and he sends this one high and wide with a chance. He's been their go-to guy, at least upfield. Vucek Wojciech, who's had probably all, I would say about all of the shots, whether they've been on target or not here for OKC Energy in this first half.
Although on that one, Josh Ford didn't have anything to say to the guys in front of him. So that was just, you got to give Wojciech the credit there. You know, they're going to get their chances because this OKC team has some good players.
Again, Danny Kunig not in the starting 11 tonight. You probably would expect to see him at some point in this game, as he leads the team in not only goals and points, but he also leads them in shots and shots on target. He had 4 shots in the game last week, 3 on target, and that didn't even include, of course, his 2 penalty kick misses as well over the course of the game.
Yeah. Well, you got to imagine that he'll be in this game in the same way that you would imagine Frank Tayo to be in for San Antonio FC. Just a matter of when.
This is settled here by the captain, Michael Thomas, puts it off the head as Wojciech volleys it down low, and Dalgard, and I think he's going to draw a corner, the first of the night for either team. As this one, they're going to say went off Milton Palacios down with Dalgard.
They're also going to say offside, Dan.
Oh, they are going to call offsides.
Yep. Ref just didn't see the call yet. I think he got so overwhelmed with guys lobbying with whether it was a goal kick or a corner kick. He just didn't see through the crowd to the offside
from the assistant across, yeah.
Well, Josh Ford trying to get a little sneaky there and gets admonished for it, but might as well try, get the ball back.
Well, these are 2 teams we said they don't score a ton of goals, but it's interesting. Both teams have only scored 8 goals in the first half all season this year. San Antonio FC, they've scored 11 of their 19 goals in the second half.
Yep. Many a time we've seen these guys go to the half and into the locker room with a 0 up on the board from their end, but a lot of times that also comes with a 0 to their opponent as well. So nothing new for San Antonio FC at Toyota Field.
This will be Dalgard will commit the foul. Or actually, no, they're going to call Milton Palacios for the foul on Dalgard. It'll set up a free kick for OKC Energy, or they first going to call offsides back down here on San Antonio FC. Yeah, those flags from the assistants are coming up late tonight. As Lorendi delivers this ball back into the attacking third. Settled by Cuevas, who gained some contact, no call here. And now it's Harris on the attack here. As he gives it back to Cuevas. Combination. Thomas lofts it into the box. Play was onside, but settled away. And nicely done by Carlos Alvarez.
JJ giving his teammates a little bit of time to set up here.
As Van Compernoli will give it back to his goalkeeper. And Lorendi will give it back to Van Compernoli as they continue to play catch here around Michael Reed.
Well, Reed giving that effort, though. A lot of other players might just kind of casually jog it, but he was putting some pressure on these guys to get it moving rather than just try and maybe sit on it. And look, when you're on the road, you take a 0-0 into the half. Meanwhile, San Antonio FC absolutely wants to try and get one up first.
Dalgard run to the outside as he tries to get one around Cochran. And now we will have our first corner of the night. It'll go to the visitors. As Dalgard put one off Greg Cochran. And so here's maybe what OKC Energy FC needs going into the tail end of the first half. They've not had a ton of chances over the last few minutes, trying to seize back some of the momentum. And it's Cuevas who's on the ball there, who will bring the service for OKC Energy FC. Again, you've got Wojciech there at 6'4" as Cuevas delivers. Settled into the box, and it looked like somebody was held there, but play continues.
There was a little bit of a hold, but then there was also a little bit of a dive, which can really make an official's decision very easy when you take that dive and he realizes it. Well, I was going to call it, but you know what? Nope, you try and fool me, they're not going to get the benefit of the doubt.
Reed pressured and fouled Wojciech with the infraction. So as we approach halftime, and with the injuries for OKC Energy FC, you figure probably in the vicinity of about 3 to 4 minutes of stoppage time that could be added on in this first half. We'll wait for the official word. But again, well played first half by San Antonio FC here as they're looking to get on the board before the end of the half. And another good run to the outside, ball into the box, and gets through, and we get an offside flag again as Jason Johnson offside on the outside.
Seems like right now for the officials, it's just a matter of maybe I should keep the flag up until I don't see an offside.
It wasn't Johnson who was offside. It was Taylor Morgan, I think, who got inside
Although that
on
was
the impulse.
really close.
Yeah. So we play on through the physical play, through the offside calls that have permeated through the latter half of this first half here as this one rolls back to Josh Ford. Still in a scoreless game, but about as entertaining of a scoreless game, at least over the last 20 minutes or so, you could expect.
Back and forth, both team with their chances. And Dan, you've talked about it throughout the half of the momentum swings that have happened. San Antonio FC has had it. But the one thing about SAFC this season, we've seen them look very good. And then all of a sudden, there's a couple of minutes left in the half, and there seems to be a mental letdown. And we've seen some goals, opponent goals, going in a half where you wouldn't have expected that to happen. And it all seems to happen in these last couple of minutes and whatever we get in added time.
We saw that in Houston against Dynamo. They scored in the dying seconds of stoppage time there in the first half to turn what was a very playable 1-0 game for San Antonio FC into a 2-0 deficit going to the locker room.
And Dan, I've watched soccer for years. That was the closest to the end of a half score I had ever seen. It was score, then the whistle. Got to play every single second.
McCarthy again looking in Taylor Morgan's direction, and this is headed out of play by Van Compernoli. Throw in for San Antonio FC. As Morgan establishing position outside the 18. We'll give it back to Milton Palacios. Palacios delivers off Jason Johnson, but it'll harmlessly bounce to Cody Lorendi.
Yep, not enough juice on that one. But again, more and more chances. You just keep creating opportunities. That puts a lot of pressure on the back line and the goalkeeper of your opponent, and that usually pays dividends later in the game.
I think if you're Darren Powell, you got to be thrilled with what your team's given you here in this first half, and hopefully they close it either if not scoring, certainly keeping Energy at bay here. The Energy have some decisions here, I think, going into halftime about personnel as far as they go into the second half.
Yeah, you especially look at the players that are going to be available to them in the second half, and in the USL, you get 5 substitutions. Is this a situation where, because they're on the road, would they be happy with a 0-0 decision and taking a point on the road?
Another foul called, this time on Energy. We'll give the ball back to San Antonio FC.
And when Darren Powell does talk to his guys at the half, even if he is thrilled with their performance, I don't think he should tell them that.
No, I agree with you. Coming up here at the half, we're also going to talk to San Antonio FC Managing Director Tim Holt. The USL Experience was awarded to San Antonio for next year. It's a very prominent program put on by the USL in conjunction with the USL Super Youth program. Kids ages 12 and 16 here. So we're going to get, looks like about 2 minutes of stoppage time that's going to be added on here in the first half. So we'll talk with Tim Holt about, I think, the honor for San Antonio FC to host such a program, especially after just one season in the USL.
And Dan, again, when you really look at it, not even a season. This is a team that started very late compared to a lot of other teams in this league. And there's a lot of attention on San Antonio as a soccer city in the first place. But
as Morgan trying to get around Hedrick. Hedrick does a nice job to keep his ground. Morgan, nice move into the box. Morgan lofts it across the box. But again, Michael Reed in the vicinity, but he was not able to get a touch.
Couldn't get the leg out.
And again, 2 minutes of stoppage time added on here at the end of the first half. Scoreless game.
The way Morgan is played, Dan, I'd be very curious to see how comfortable Darren Powell is playing Taylor for a half in the second half, maybe. I mean, you thought maybe it would even be a situation where he just plays the first 45 minutes of this game, but the way that he's playing, the way that he's been able to control himself, not waste energy, just in the name of wasting energy, how many more minutes does he have left in the tank? And could we even see a situation where Frank Teo and Taylor Morgan are out there at the same time?
Josh Ford knocks away that throw-in that came from beyond the midfield line, that came all the way into the 6-yard box from OKC Energy FC, and Jose Cuevas will go back to take the corner again here. Perhaps the last opportunity for Energy before the end of the half. Second corner for them. Cuevas, service into the box, headed away by McCarthy. Highland takes it out, puts it back to the top of the 6, and cleared away, and this will stay in play, and Highland will let it go out of play. Another quick throw in here for Energy in the attacking third.
Well, McCarthy's aerial game is the best part of his game. So you know that if there's going to be a head put on the ball, 9 times out of 10, especially in that spot, that it's going to be Stephen McCarthy getting there.
That'll do it for the first half. The whistle goes scoreless between San Antonio FC and OKC Energy FC, but fireworks on both sides of the field, and a physical first half has come to an end at Toyota Field. The game remains scoreless. Coming up at the half, we'll take a look at stats and highlights from the opening half here at Toyota Field, and again, we'll talk with Tim Holt from San Antonio FC. All coming up at the half, scoreless here tonight, Toyota Field. Back after this.
Technology is a living thing. It listens to us.
How may I help you?
It shows us the way. It expands our minds and gives us vision where once we had none. This is how civilization moves forward. This
is how we get coffee.
The 2016 Corolla. Technology on a whole other level.
Right now, get $1,500 customer cash, or qualified buyers get 0% APR financing for 72 months on a stylish new 2016 Corolla. Toyota, let's go places.
Some excel because they're destined to. Most excel because they are determined to. They set out to outperform, outwork, out-hustle, outthink, and innovate. That's how you become outstanding at what you do. It doesn't matter if you're running a team or running a business. Prepare like no one else, and when you get the opportunity to excel, you'll be ready.
For anything.
Welcome to Corner Store. How can we help?
Well, I'm thirsty.
We have juice, teas, and over 100 ways to create your drink with our Coca-Cola Freestyle.
Wow, that's a lot of drinks.
Need a boost? We've got fresh coffee and great deals on energy drinks.
That's cool and hot.
Ready to relax? Check out our craft beer and wine selection.
Classy.
How else can we help?
I'll just take these. Thanks.
Don't forget the milk. Just $2.39 a gallon at Corner Store. Always fresh, guaranteed. We're fresh and friendly. We're Corner Store.
Scoreless at the half here at Toyota Field, San Antonio FC and OKC Energy FC. No goals, but certainly a lot of excitement on both ends of the field. Thanks so much for staying with us here tonight. Dan Weiss with you. Well, yesterday, a very exciting announcement for both San Antonio FC and San Antonio Soccer, as the USL, in conjunction with the USL Super Y program, the Super Youth program, awarded the 2017 USL Experience to San Antonio and San Antonio FC. It's a program that recognizes and brings some of the best young players in North America to a pro team and a pro city. It, over a multi-day period, allows them to train with some of the best. And to get a little bit of preview of what those kids might experience, a little taste of what the USL experience may look like here in San Antonio next year.
Hello Super Y League players, this is Darren Powell, head coach of San Antonio FC in the USL. On behalf of all of us here in San Antonio, we're excited to host the best 70 players in the Super Y League at our wonderful facilities next spring for the USL Experience. If selected, you will get a first-hand experience of what it's like to be a professional soccer player in the USL, and also get to see us take on a Western Conference rival right here at Toyota Field. Your direct pathway for the 2017 USL Experience here in San Antonio is through the Regional Scouting Series. So if you are selected to attend one of those events, make sure you get out there and turn a few heads. That way you can come and experience what it's like to be a professional player here in San Antonio.
So again, the USL Experience coming to San Antonio next year. Great honor for San Antonio FC, as well as this city and the soccer it supports. We'll take a break. We'll be joined by Tim Holt, Managing Director, when we return to Toyota Field after this.
We've worked pretty hard to become the world's largest independent refiner and to be America's third largest producer of renewable fuels. But we've also worked hard to be named one of Fortune's most admired companies by giving over 125,000 volunteer hours a year, donating over 1 million pounds of food to local food banks, and building homes for Habitat for Humanity. To appreciate a company's true value, you have to understand the heart of its people.
When it needs to be ultra exciting, high flying, non-stop action, San Antonio FC Soccer's got you covered. When it needs to be high performing, hard working, high tech, super safe, built for comfort, and surprisingly affordable, Holt Cat has got you covered. With best-in-class cat heavy equipment, engines, generators, and more, plus legendary service and support, and the largest parts inventory and distribution network in Texas. Kick it into high gear with Holt Cat.
Hey, LaMarcus. The guys and I brought you some HEB Primo Picks to try.
Wow, prime run burgers and steaks.
I got you HEB, that salsa about Texas.
And I got you that green sauce. Get it?
I get it.
French vanilla creamy creations ice cream.
Of course. I got you cheese balls.
That's it?
That's all we got? Come on. Cheese balls. What? They're bacon cheddar. Texas Pet's dog food. I don't even have a dog.
Primo Picks, unique products from Texas and around the world.
Celebrate the season right with Stars Basketball and Family Fun Day. Every Saturday and Sunday home game presented by News 4 and Fox 29. Ticket and food packages start at just $13. Head over to sastars.com for more info. Season presented by Krista Santa Rosa Health System and HEB.
We continue at the half from Toyota Field. Scoreless between San Antonio FC and OKC Energy FC. Thanks so much for joining us, Stan Weiss. Pleased to be joined by the managing director for San Antonio FC, Tim Holt. And, of course, you just saw a moment ago the great honor of the USL experience that is going to be here in San Antonio next year, which is terrific, of course, for a first-year program. We're not even through the first year, which is amazing when you think about it. And we'll talk about the USL experience in just a second. But, Tim, I want to talk about these last couple of weeks for San Antonio FC. I don't think anybody certainly expected this team would be in sync and have the cohesion right out of the gate, but certainly they have come together over these last couple of weeks, and it has made for some very exciting soccer here at Toyota Field.
Yeah, we agree. It's been a really positive last couple of weeks, starting probably with the Portland game. Where we went out and took the game to essentially a bunch of MLS roster players on Portland, and I think that was the turning point for us. A little bit of a wake-up call after the Open Cup defeat, and the guys and the coaching staff have responded incredibly, and it's been a good stretch for us. What we've done is we've gotten ourselves back into it. But that's not good enough in terms of where our expectations are, and we'd like to get ourselves even further up the table.
And what's even amazing, what a lot of people don't even consider, is the fact you've lost three of your best players in Victor Araujo, Sean Chin, and Manolo Sanchez for extended period, and yet you just continue to, along with Darren, plug guys in, and they've made an impact. Obviously, Frank Tayu's been fantastic here these last couple weeks.
Yeah, look, you feel bad for those guys. All of them were really playing their best soccer of the season when they went down. It's opportunity for someone else. Our roster is very talented. Obviously, the addition of Frank has given us another attacking option up front, and Taylor, as we've seen here. But, including the guys that have been here the whole time, it takes a little while. Certainly not an excuse for, anything that happened in the first 10 games of the season, but we're all learning each other. And I think, the best of this group is still to come in the second half of the season. We're very excited about it.
So let's talk a little bit about the USL experience, which will come to San Antonio next year. FC Cincinnati got a chance to host it this year. It brings in some of the best young players in North America that get a chance over a couple of days to kind of learn from the pros, I guess. Talk a little bit about it. Of course, you were the leader at time of the USL. Talk a little bit about how this program evolved.
Yeah, it's a fantastic initiative, and I think it's an honor to be the host of it. So effectively what it is, the USL runs its own National Youth Soccer League called the Super Y League. And so the best 100 of the best players at sort of age 14 through 18 are identified through league play and through a regional scouting system that they have, and will be given the opportunity to fly to San Antonio next spring for one of our early season games, and essentially have a 4-day mini camp where they're all trained together. They'll play some games, and there's an opportunity for our local teams probably to get involved in this and just really immerse them in the professional experience. So our facilities, our coaching staff, our front office staff, media training, all the behind-the-scenes stuff that you would get from a professional club that a youth soccer player typically wouldn't be exposed to or see. So, it's a privilege for them to be able to do it. It's a privilege for us to be able to host it, for San Antonio to be able to host it, the soccer community, and certainly our club. So we're very excited about it. The league's promised us that we'll have a big rivalry game that night too, so they'll be able to see the great experience here at Toyota Field firsthand.
And we haven't even talked about it yet, but it's also a great way to showcase your academy too, of course, which is up and coming, correct?
100%, right? I think it, it's going to take a few years to build that out where we want to be. As we've announced this week, we've launched the first sort of fully funded SAFC Pro Academy team, which is the 2004 boys. That group is now essentially 12 years old. Our goal is to develop some first-team players over time. If we succeed in that goal, it'll help us. Even if we don't succeed on that particular objective, we'll be developing San Antonio youth soccer players for college soccer, and just trying to create the right environment certainly for elite players and for soccer players. So it's part of the club model that we've embraced, sort of youth to professional. It's how we want to do it. We're building this thing for the long term. We think we have an MLS future, and this is a key component to that.
Tim, appreciate the time. Congratulations on being awarded the USL experience, and best of luck, of course, here the rest of this season.
Thanks, Dan. Always a pleasure.
Tim Holt, Managing Director for San Antonio FC. We'll take a break. When we return, Jeff rejoins me. Highlights and stats from that first half here at Toyota Field.
Go early, stay late. It's not just X's and O's. It's studying tendencies, analyzing stats, developing new strategies, fine-tuning a game plan. That's what's needed to excel. Whether the focus is coaching, mortgages, investing, finances, insurance, you put the time in. They say luck is when preparation meets opportunity. It's also called being ready.
For anything.
We've worked pretty hard to become the world's largest independent refiner and to be America's third largest producer of renewable fuels. But we've also worked hard to be named one of Fortune's most admired companies by giving over 125,000 volunteer hours a year, donating over 1 million pounds of food to local food banks, and building homes for Habitat for Humanity. To appreciate a company's true value, you have to understand the heart of its people.
Technology is a living thing. It listens to us.
How may I help you?
It shows us the way. It expands our minds and gives us vision where once we had none. This is how civilization moves forward. This
is how we get coffee.
The 2016 Corolla. Technology on a whole other level.
Right now, get $1,500 customer cash, or qualified buyers get 0% APR financing for 72 months on a stylish new 2016 Corolla. Toyota, let's go places.
Welcome to Corner Store. How can we help?
Well, I'm thirsty.
We have juice, teas, and over 100 ways to create your drink with our Coca-Cola Freestyle.
Wow, that's a lot of drinks.
Need a boost? We've got fresh coffee and great deals on energy drinks.
That's cool and hot.
Ready to relax? Check out our craft beer and wine selection.
Classy.
How else can we help?
I'll just take these. Thanks.
Don't forget the milk. Just $2.39 a gallon at Corner Store. Always fresh, guaranteed. We're fresh and friendly. We're Corner Store.
Halftime continues here at Toyota Field. Scoreless between San Antonio FC and OKC Energy FC. Again, along with Jeff Sheen, I'm Dan Weiss. Thanks so much for joining us. Jeff, entertaining 0-0 first half. And for San Antonio FC, a lot of positives coming out of the opening 45 minutes tonight.
Absolutely, especially as the half went along. And that's what makes you if you're Darren Powell at least, you've got to feel really good about that. It was a little bit back and forth at the beginning of the game, maybe even OKC with more of the momentum. But as things wore along, San Antonio FC created a ton of chances for themselves. That's a huge thing moving into the second half.
Let's take a look at some of those first half highlights for San Antonio FC and a little bit of everything, Jeff, in that opening half.
Yeah, including Taylor Morgan and what we thought might be an opportunity, just ran out of time to really get a great shot on goal.
And then again, Josh Ford, he didn't have to come up very big in that first half, but the times he did come up big, he certainly made the save.
He certainly did, and he certainly yelled at his back line each and every time.
As you see, San Antonio FC had a couple of chances there on services from the outside and some great runs. There was Michael Reed with a chance that Cody Lorendi knocked down.
I think of all the ones that they had, it was probably the first of these where Jason Johnson really had a good look, probably tried to make it too perfect, and as a result, they didn't even get a shot on goal.
And again, no question, though, and this was the one that Jason Johnson, as you talked about, thought he got fouled there inside the 6-yard box. There was no call. There was certainly, I would say, some disputes for both coaches with the referee there in that first half. We'll see whether that comes into play in the second half, Jeff. And obviously, again, talking about OKC Energy FC and the personnel that they have on the bench, as well as Frank Taiu, the X factor for San Antonio FC when those guys enter the game will be interesting, too.
And another thing to watch out for in the second half, I could say it jokingly, but it is true. Are we going to see the offside flag as many times as we did in the first half? There's nothing that takes the excitement out of a game more than scoring opportunities that turned out went for nothing because the offside flag goes up.
And it certainly came up plenty of times here as you take a look at Darren Powell getting ready and getting ready to go here in the second half for San Antonio FC. And I asked Darren yesterday at practice, Jeff, I said, you know, these last 3 games, do you kind of feel like you've, you know, now maybe are back to the curve of where you want to be at this point in the season? Are you kind of ahead of the curve? And he said, well, you know, it's nice to be where we are right now at 5-5-5, but you know, we buried ourselves so much in the opening couple months of the season that to say we are where we want to be just really isn't a fair argument at this point in the season.
And Dan, maybe typified by the last time these two teams met, a game where I think a lot of fans felt, I know the players and Darren Powell felt this way, but especially for the fans, this is a first season for San Antonio FC in San Antonio. They had a lot of momentum coming off of their first game of the year when they just absolutely annihilated S2 to start off the year. And then you got some of these performances, especially here at Toyota Field, where you felt that the team did enough to win, but there was that one thing that stood in their way when it was against OKC last time here at Toyota Field. It was because of Cody Lorendi in goal for OKC. So if he can give that kind of performance again, then maybe fans will be leaving here tonight thinking the exact same thing that we thought so many weeks ago.
Same 11 that left the field, and the half start the field here in the second half. Again, along with Jeff Sheen, Dan Weiss from Toyota Field. You'll be glad to know the temperature has dipped down to 87 degrees from its 93 at kickoff. It still feels like 94, and we'll see how that plays a factor here in the second half as well. As Carlos Alvarez comes back to break up an attack going forward here by OKC Energy FC. And again, I think how the players get substituted here in the second half will certainly tell the story of how both teams want to approach the second half, of what the fatigue factor is like for both teams in the second half, and something we'll keep our eye on.
And something else to keep in mind, especially for soccer fans in San Antonio that are watching USL for the first time versus maybe you've been watching Euro, or you've been watching, or you did watch Copa. There are 5 substitutions in the USL, so you can see some pretty significant, dare I say, wholesale changes to who's out on the pitch by both sides, and it will all be determined probably of what happens in the first 10 or 15 minutes. And maybe OKC, especially if this remains a 0-0 game, could it be a situation where they say, we're going to go with all midfielders and defensive players and just try and hold this thing and walk away with the point? Or will something happen in the first 10 or 15 minutes where either side has to go for broke?
We mentioned the temperature, but in case you're wondering about the wind, it has not died down at all. It is still blowing at about just under 20 miles an hour out of the southeast. So again, that ball continues to get hung up in the wind on clearances tonight and on deliveries and on set pieces, which again, Jeff, we haven't seen a lot of, is again Michael Harris, who's been doing the somersault throw and gets one into the box here to start the second half before it's headed away.
Yeah, Alvarez here, and we've seen Cochran a little bit in the first half, but the one thing about Greg is that he's been their minutes guy. He's a guy that as the game goes along, I think becomes a more reliable part of that back line, and because he plays wing back, this guy could also come up as we get further into the half and maybe be a guy that sends one across the middle for a scoring attempt.
This is Michael Harris, wing midfielder. He's actually usually a wing back, but he's playing up tonight, allowing Highland and Van Compernoli to get into the game here this evening, as this ball sent in the direction of Dalgard over on the far side before it's taken away by Jason Johnson, who's got some space back through the middle to operate. And now pressured by Danny Gonzalez right as he hits the midfield line, but San Antonio FC still able to push forward here. Opening minutes of the second half at Toyota Field, scoreless. Numbers from that first half, OKC Energy actually had more shots for than San Antonio FC, the 3 they had in that opening half of play.
And that's one of those things, Dan, where you look at shots versus opportunities. There are 2 opportunities that are not on that score sheet right now for San Antonio FC that I would actually say were their 2 best looks to try and score a goal.
Cochran, as he serves this one here just inside the top of the 18, and an OKC Energy player went down. The ball never found its way into the welcoming arms there of Jason Johnson, and OKC Energy will take over possession.
I'm just glad that Greg heard me and went right up the sideline with that crosser. So that I think that we're going to see more of that as the second half rolls on here.
By our scorekeeper's account, each team only had 1 official shot on goal in that first half. So 4-3 were the shots, but on target, just 1 for either side. There were, by the way, 14 combined fouls that were called in that first half, 9 of them which were called on San Antonio FC.
Well, let's see if that starts to even up as far as one side to the other here in the second half. because as we showed in the highlights, Dan, it definitely when JJ was ended up on the ground, you could absolutely make the case that should have gone for a penalty shot.
Cyprian Hedrick will let this one roll all the way out, and we'll set up a goal kick here for Cody Lorendi, who certainly, as we talked about the last time OKC Energy was here, earned his keep, and he was a couple of times, not, I don't think, as confident playing the ball on some of those services from the wings in that first half. He may fumbled one of them that could have led to a scoring chance for Jason Johnson, but he couldn't get a shot off. And again, one of those nights, though, where Lorendi, who's been awfully good all season, maybe not 100% on his game.
Oh, we'll see. The advantage for San Antonio in this half is that Lorendi is going to play on the, as we're looking down on the pitch, he's going to be playing on the left side. And you have both fan groups, especially those Mission City guys sitting in section 118.
And we get a handball here on Taylor Morgan, and free kick here for OKC Energy FC. Not to mention, Jeff, not only has he got the fan groups in him, but the wind is actually now blowing into his face here in the second half, too. So that certainly could play a factor as well.
I don't think he's going to have a very fun half, Dan. That's my prediction, sure to go right.
Now Taylor Morgan, again acquired from Tulsa Roughnecks FC, back in late June, has had a very impactful San Antonio FC debut. They have been looking for him upfield, and he's made his runs very effectively in this game.
I think the only question at this point is how many more minutes is he going to be out there before Darren Powell says he needs to go in a different direction.
Kyle Hyland looking for that ball as it'll come back here to Cody Andrews and reset by OKC Energy FC.
Well, looking at him right now, Taylor Morgan looks like he's still got some gas left in the tank.
As Castillo deflected this one back, but well offside, making the run upfield there.
That was so offside that the flag didn't even need to go up. It's just like, we all know what's
everybody
happened,
knew
right?
it was offside.
Let's just keep playing through on that one, guys.
Dalgard unable to settle. Alvarez working upfield with Rafa Castillo and Carlos Alvarez. Nice move around Harris. Operating room for Carlos Alvarez. Alvarez right into the welcoming arms of Cody Lorendi.
Well, that will go for a shot, but all things being equal, Carlos just went with what was given to him. He was obviously looking for Taylor there. He didn't have the angle to it, so he decided to break it out wide and go with the left foot. I think the decision-making was right there, Dan, but it was just, I mean, again, it was right at Lorendi. That was not a very difficult save for him to make.
Pretty good look, though, as Alvarez opened up some space, and Rafa Castillo got upended a little bit on the last play where there was not a foul called as the ball was sent over the net by Michael Reed, and Rafa and Wojciech share an embrace, which is kind of amusing if you consider Rafa at 5'6" and Wojciech at 6'4".
Yeah.
And again, Cody Lorendi kicking into the wind here in this second half, so that ball is not going to get as far as he wants to on the clearance. So advantage San Antonio FC there, as we'll get a push off again in the midfield. And this time looked like it was Michael Reed.
Well, so far I know that San Antonio FC feels like they have not gotten the benefit of the doubt on any call versus that OKC has gotten a number of them.
Michael Thomas and Michael Harris. And the captain, Thomas, as he sends it upfield for Wojciech. And Wojciech turning to the outside here as he is harassed by Carlos Alvarez, and he's got to turn it back to his own side of the field.
Great job by Cochran and Alvarez there, really kind of squeezing him and forcing a situation where he had to win the ball twice in two different one-on-one matchups.
And Van Compernoli here again, his first start since coming back to OKC was with the team last year in their run through the USL playoffs. This is a program, OKC Energy FC, that's now in their 3rd season. And again, some of these teams that have come in here, like Colorado Springs Switchbacks, now in their 2nd season, some of these teams that you start to see have some familiarity with the teams that they've built from their inaugural year, starting to bring players back. And I think that consistency and chemistry is so key in this sport.
And the one thing that separates OKC, well, I guess there could be a number of factors, but I'd say one of the main ones with OKC versus San Antonio is that OKC has their relationship with FC Dallas versus San Antonio is doing their own thing here. So sometimes we see it. Like, for instance, we saw what's happened in the last couple of weeks with RGV and their affiliation with Houston. All of a sudden, a coach gets fired in Houston, and wait a minute, the guy that we thought was going to be the coach isn't the coach. He's staying at RGV, and now sometimes there's a benefit. Sometimes it can be a huge negative.
As Johnson's got some space on the outside here, into the box, and sends this one well high and wide of the net.
Again, in this half, though, Dan, I think that San Antonio FC is doing a good job kind of what they're being given. They're trying to create opportunities out of that. Very rarely, at least when you're not in set pieces, are you really going to have an opportunity to make it perfect. It's about you just keep knocking on the door, and hopefully you get an answer.
And again, we've only had 2 corner kicks in this game. Both of them have belonged to OKC Energy FC, so those set-piece chances really have not been there for either side, in fact. As you were talking about OKC Energy's relationship with FC Dallas, a couple of the players that have played in this series before that are up with FC Dallas, Coycraft, Colin Bonner. It was Bonner who scored the only goal in the game the last time these teams met. They're both up. Timo Pitter is available tonight. He was actually just sent down by FC Dallas last week.
That's the kind of stuff that can happen. And some of these teams, Dan, across USL with those relationships, some of these teams, and OKC isn't one of them, but some of these teams, it's almost like, all right, so 11 of us show up on Saturday and let's play some soccer. And very rarely, no matter how talented you are you really going to get good payoffs when that's your strategy as an organization.
Some substitutes are already getting warm on both ends here as we approach the 58th minute of play here at Toyota Field in a scoreless game.
Well, mark it down because it looks like we're getting very close to the favorite 3 words of San Antonio FC fans. We have a Frank the Tank sighting along the sidelines.
Frank Tayu, who joined the club back in June, as Morgan trying to make the run on this, but will not get to the ball.
But good pressure there.
Tayu, who's scored twice in his first 3 games, 7 shots in those 3 games, Jeff. And it's funny, I asked him if Frank the Tank was just something that kind of came along wherever he was. And he said, no, this is the first time he's ever heard it. But if he's putting the ball in the back of the net, he's totally fine with it.
He has intimated, I think, to all of us that he's totally fine with the nickname. Although you would think, based on what movie Old School coming out in 2003 or something like that 13 years later wouldn't be the first time that you'd see a player with that nickname. I guess maybe we don't have enough athletes named Frank.
Cochran puts it into the box, and Kyle Hyland will send this off the flag. And that should be a throw-in, and it will, because it went to the inside of the flag there. Almost San Antonio FC's first corner of the night. Very close. And Cochran will take the ball from Carlos Alvarez here.
No flips coming, I can tell you that much.
Alvarez looking for Taylor Morgan, who skies over the defenders, but is only able to turn it well wide of the net.
Well, this is around the time that you start seeing substitutes with 30 minutes left in the half. So I'd imagine that we're not only going to see Tayu come into this game, Dan, but I'd imagine that OKC will start using some of their substitutes as well.
And he looks like he's going to come into the game relatively soon here, as he gives his card to the scorekeeper just below us. Meanwhile, Dalgard trying to make the run. He's got some pressure there on Milton Palacios, and Palacios goes down. And Dalgard, I think, may get a card on this one here.
He should.
And he will. A yellow card has been awarded to Sebastian Dalgard, the second time he's been yellow carded this season.
Yeah, this is a pretty obvious call for the ref to make. Get an obvious yank on the jersey twice, and then lobbying the ref for why aren't you giving me the call? Well, that's because you just pulled down your opponent. You tried once to no avail before you got it done the second time.
And here we go, Jeff. Frank Taiu will enter the game in the 60th minute, and Taylor Morgan, very, very good debut for San Antonio FC, is off the pitch.
I'd imagine before going into this game, I thought the most that we would see Taylor Morgan would be 70 minutes. We get him for 60, and the most likely guy to come in and substitute for him was Frank Taiu. So Darren Powell certainly not doing anything so far in terms of substitutions that should surprise anybody that had any sort of knowledge going into this game.
So Taiu will have 30 minutes here, plus some stoppage time to try to continue his magic. Again, 2 goals in the first 3 games for him, and as you pointed at the top, big part of San Antonio FC's turnaround here over these last few weeks.
Now we're seeing some free kicks go the way of SAFC. So can they cash in on one of them?
Here's Rafa Castillo. We'll go over the ball here. And pushing forward, Frank Taiu, along with Stephen McCarthy, Michael Reed, Jason Johnson playing to the outside. Got some size with McCarthy and Bradnock Brennan as well as Taiu there in the middle too.
Yeah, McCarthy, this is the time where he can be an offensive weapon.
This ball through, but did not connect. It was McCarthy who appeared to be the number that Rafa Castillo was looking to target.
Well, you have McCarthy and Rafa kind of chirping back and forth at each other, so they were clearly not on the same page of what that was supposed to be. Sometimes you just get a miss kick, and it's simple as that, but other times it's, wait, I thought you were coming here, and I was supposed to send it there. So an obvious miscommunication based on the player reaction.
Pico will send this one out of play into the seats just below us. And a throw in for OKC Energy FC here on the San Antonio FC side of the field. 62nd minute at Toyota Field. Scoreless game. The chances probably are not indicative in the stats, as Jeff pointed out before, in terms of shots and shots on goal. But if you would say that the game has probably favored San Antonio FC, that would probably be a pretty fair statement here tonight.
I would say that's accurate, but we have seen those opportunities for OKC. So there's no reason for anyone, especially on the back line of SAFC, to feel like they should be comfortable right now.
Taiu will settle and tries to work through 3 green shirts and is able to play it ahead, but intercepted. Rafa Castillo with a nice back pass now, and Carlos Alvarez with some running room. Castillo, and he tried to go to the inside, and well played there by Michael Harris, but Frank Taiu keeps that ball alive here for a few more seconds before the clearance by Cyprian Hedrick upfield.
As important as Frank has been for the scoring of this team in the last 3 games, Dan, you don't want to force it. And you look at Rafa in that spot there, he could have gone the other way. And with this much time left, try and get Taiu involved. It makes sense, but don't have it be a situation where every single time you're advancing the ball, you're asking the question, where's Frank? You have more than just one guy that's capable of putting it into the net.
Johnson, Salazar, will switch ends of the field. Rafa, combination with Michael Reed, but too many green jerseys to maneuver through. Wojciech, and trying to make the run, Danny Gonzalez, and anticipated well there by McCarthy.
Seems like both sides are settling it down just a little bit here, knowing that they have, with additional time, we're probably looking at 30 more minutes of having to run the pitch. So it makes sense for it to kind of settle down at this point.
And for OKC Energy FC, these are the types of games they play. 0-0 games. They played to a 0-0 draw last week. They have been very accustomed to playing these low-scoring games. Cody Lorendi's got 4 shutouts, 4 clean sheets this year coming into the game. So this is not unfamiliar territory for them.
Absolutely not. And for that point, too, Dan, I mean, maybe not 0-0, but we've seen San Antonio FC play a ton of low-scoring games as well. I don't think either of these teams are outside of their comfort zone based on it being 0-0.
I guess, though, for San Antonio FC, they've been, I don't want to say an offensive juggernaut, but they've certainly been a little bit more prone to getting that ball in the back of the net here these last couple of weeks. So for fans watching, 0-0 might seem like a little bit of a shocker at this point.
Well, that is very true, and I'm sure somebody's on Twitter right now snarkily tweeting, Dan Weiss just said that SAFC is an offensive juggernaut.
That's why I don't give out my Twitter handle on these broadcasts.
No one ever said you're an idiot. Quite the opposite.
You get a couple of OKC subs coming in here in just a moment.
And it looks like we're going to get 2 at the same time.
And these will come in the 66th minute here as Danny Koenig is going to make his way onto the pitch. He's going to take out Vucic Wojcik here in just a moment. As Wojcik puts it into Dalgard, who gets thrown down in the box by Milton Palacios that he cannot believe he does not get a call.
Well, these things tend to even themselves out, and for San Antonio FC fans that were wondering where the call was for Jason Johnson, well, maybe that was the equalizer.
Well, Dalgard certainly here, as Wojcik put it right to him, and Palacios runs him over, and that very well could have been called a foul inside the box and a penalty kick awarded for OKC Energy FC.
Well, I'd say for the most part, if there's some sort of common thread to the way this game has been reffed so far, is he's letting the players go at it a little bit. Another kind of easy save for Lorendi there.
Harris. And a throw in, and we will get those substitutions now here. So in the 67th minute, Danny Koenig, who had started every single game this season before tonight, will come in as he takes out Vucic Wojcik, and it'll be Timo Pitter who will come in to take out what normally had been Koenig's running mate and his fellow countryman Sebastian Dalgard from Denmark. Timo Pitter will come in place of Dalgard here also in the 67th minute.
And as much as Koenig has been an offensive player for this team, Dan, you look at the substitutions, you have a midi coming out for a player that's listed as a defensive player. Has OKC made the determination that walking out of here with a point is their strategy in the last 25 minutes?
Darren Powell wanted a handball and a hold, perhaps, against OKC Energy FC on that attack. And another throw for Michael Harris, who took his last throw in from behind the midfield line, and now he's in the attacking third of the field. And this is where a guy like Koenig is exceptionally dangerous. And there's a lot of pushing there in that 6-yard box as Ford, as he is run over, and he takes a two-hand shove there at Koenig, and there is a dust-up developing inside the San Antonio FC net.
We are going to see at least one yellow here, Dan, at minimum.
Boy, and you've got Milton Palacios there in the net now, and both coaches are going out, Jimmy Nielsen and Darren Powell. Now, this all started before the throw, and there was a lot of contact inside that 6-yard box.
Yep.
And when it was all over, the biggest takeaway was Danny Koenig and Josh Ford, where everything started.
Ford did not appreciate the way that Koenig was in there and took.
And look
now
at
you
Cody
got
Lorendi
all the way down
all
there.
the way downfield there, jawing with Stephen McCarthy. And
now the
cooler
question
heads
is
trying to prevail.
Yeah, just how many yellows are you going to see? And it looks like we've got a red too. We're going to have at least one red here, and sometimes that could be as much as.
I think that, you're right. I think the biggest question is, where does Josh Ford come out of all of this?
Yes. Who is this red going to go to, and are we going to see more than one red? Sometimes you see the second player to create contact, and if that's the case, it's probably Ford.
We'll take a look at it again here, and this is where it all developed. Now you see Biko
Ford's
and Koenig
being thrown out,
who were there, and you know what? Ford threw the shove on Koenig, and then Cody Andrews in the middle. Josh Ford has been given a red card. Now, if I'm the referee, I even this up. I give a red card to Ford, I give a red card to Koenig.
and it looks like that's exactly what's going to happen, Dan, because Koenig is very upset now. Now, here's a guy that missed out on 2 penalty kicks in their last game, OKC's last game, doesn't start, probably as a direct result of that, comes in just, 4 minutes ago, if that? Maybe it was even closer to 3 minutes ago, and is looks like he's also going to be given a red.
Well, we'll take another look at it again here, but I think that's the only call you can make in this situation. Koenig, Biko, Bradnock, Brennan being held, and this right here is where the dust-up occurred.
Yeah.
Ford goes after Koenig retaliating a little bit. I think the only fair call in that play is you've got to red card both players.
Now, the thing is, though, if you're OKC, you take that trade every single time because Josh Ford is the guy. You're talking about a clean sheet up until this point, that, especially in his performance in the last game. Koenig, as good or as important as he's been for OKC, if you just go recent history and what Josh Ford means, I mean, this is OKC's got to be taking this.
Now, Cody Andrews is pretty upset here, too, and I'm wondering if there's another red card that's being assessed here as well. Koenig is still on the field. You see him right there. Cody Andrews was also in the middle as well, as we take, again, another look here. Now, there's Ford. Again, goes right after Koenig, so that's where his red card comes. But you see Cody Andrews, he comes right in as well.
Yeah.
And he throws Josh Ford down, too. So I don't know here. Again, I think if you're the referee, this should be a one-for-one trade. Would be fair for both sides. Now,
well, Koenig's leaving right now, so you have at least that. And maybe all the rest of this, Dan, was just OKC players lobbying, thinking that it should just be Ford being ejected. But do we have another player? Now, Matt Cardoni is going to come in because obviously they're not going to. San Antonio FC isn't going to play without a goalkeeper.
So obviously, somebody else has to come out for San Antonio FC.
Right.
They'd have to play with 10 men, of course, because Josh Ford's been ejected.
And at this point, you might look at a guy like Jason Johnson now that you've got Taiyu out there. Not that Johnson becomes, quote, expendable, but...
And I think that's exactly what it is. They put the flag up, or the scorecard up there for Jason Johnson, number 18, to come off for Matt Cardoni.
Yep, there you go. JJ had a very good game tonight.
He was excellent. Now, this all happened, Jeff, in the 68th minute. We are now in the 73rd minute, so we are going to get a lot of stoppage time here as the referee continues to discuss with both coaches, Jimmy Nielsen and Darren Powell. And for what we've seen, we've only seen 2 players be sent off here, Josh Ford and Danny Koenig, which again, to me, I think is the only fair way you could call this after everything kind of developed. There's the shove by Ford.
Yeah,
there's
that's
Koenig.
just dumb by Josh.
And Cody Andrews came in late, but I think he's going to potentially escape any further consequence.
And for whatever reason, Rafa Castillo, I don't know if it's been the talk since this occurred or something in that scrum. They were very equipped to understand what just happened in the last 5 to 10 minutes.
Matt Cardoni, who, again, didn't see a lot of action last year with the Scorpions, saw just one game earlier this season. No doubt it's been the Josh Ford show all year. And in the one game that he did play, he gave up 3 goals against Rio Grande Valley FC Toros, and Talk about an X factor, certainly one that, as much as we talk about the fewer men on the field perhaps being an advantage for San Antonio FC, the change in goalkeepers advantage OKC Energy FC.
The one thing, I guess, if you want to put a positive note on where SAFC stands at this point.
Yes, here's a run on side through. Now a late offside flag.
Very late. Well, I said it at the half. Are we going to see the offside flag still coming up? And the answer has been absolutely yes, as we're going to see yet another substitution for OKC. Looks like Michael Thomas. Or no, I apologize, Dan.
Kalen Ryden is going to come on for Cuevas here in the 78th minute. So a defender Ryden for the forward Cuevas. So what's interesting here now, Jeff, is that if you're OKC Energy FC, they almost look like they're playing for the tie at this point because Dalgard, Wojciech, Koenig, and now Cuevas all out of the game. So they really don't have, other than Timo Pitter, a natural striker out on the field right now.
You know what, though, Dan? Interesting strategy by OKC because as we've talked about what about Cordoni in goal instead of Ford? What about now you got less guys? Well, here you also have OKC going with some defensive personnel, so any sort of push that they might have on a goalie that is clearly on the depth chart. I mean, Matt's the backup to Josh Ford, but all things being equal, Josh Ford is supposed to be in front of the goal in every single one of these games. So now OKC maybe taking that advantage away from themselves and saying, would rather play for the point than maybe go for broke and take on the second string goal. But the one thing about Matt, I've seen him in practice a number of times, Dan. Obviously Josh is going to get the reps, but Matt Cardoni, you can tell. I mean, he has prototypical size for a goalkeeper. So he looks the part when they're in practice, especially when they're doing their working on different drills and skills part. This is a guy that, depending on the day, looks equal to Josh Ford. So it's not like Matt Cardoni is a guy that's going to be in front of the net and all OKC has to do is kick it in the general vicinity and it's going to go in. Matt Cardoni is good.
San Antonio FC looks to continue their winning ways next Saturday, July 16th. First MLS 2 team visiting Toyota Field. First place, Vancouver Whitecaps 2. Tickets start at just $10. Go to sanantoniofc.com. Middle game of the 3-game homestand.
I wonder how those guys are going to feel about leaving the Pacific Northwest. I know it's in Canada, but still, coming down to what will probably be very similar to the elements that we saw tonight.
Well, because of everything that has occurred, Jeff, and I can't believe I'm saying this, we've gone 12 minutes without mentioning Frank Tayu's name.
It's unfair. I know you and I were planning on just talking about the color of his shoes for at least 10 minutes.
Can't miss him on the field with those. Although Michael Reed sports a similar fashion, too.
Very similar, yes.
Here's Castillo's going to get to this ball. Castillo trying to bend this one, and a great block by Cyprian Hedrick, and he paid the price on that one and is certainly feeling the effects after the fact.
Well, this is one of those situations where we were so far removed, and the stoppage was so significant that you look at Tayu right now, and Frank has both his hands on hips, and he's kind of just glaring at Rafa saying, why didn't you find the hole, get me involved? It's so funny to think that before we got to that scrum minutes ago that I was saying that San Antonio FC seemed almost hell-bent on trying to get Frank involved, even forcing it. Now you have a situation there where if that had occurred maybe 10 minutes ago, that absolutely would have gone the direction of Tayu. Instead, Rafa just tries to keep it himself and bend it.
With all this, we're in the 82nd minute here at Toyota Field, a scoreless game, but fireworks of all different varieties. As Tayu trying to open up inside on that throw-in by Cochran. Ball back to Castillo, and his service into the middle is headed away. Cochran keeps it alive, puts it back into the box, cleared away, and now some running room for OKC upfield. Trying to make the run, here's Pitter, and that ball really died. Matt Cardoni came well out of his box to play it, and he got it ahead to Miguel Salazar.
Heady play, exactly the way that a goalie should play it, and I think, Dan, that kind of speaks to what we were just talking about, that Matt knows what his role is, and he gets one of those chances fairly early on since coming out on the field.
And another substitution for San Antonio FC. 82nd minute of the game. Fujiro Okioma is going to come on, and he will replace Carlos Alvarez for San Antonio FC. Fujiro started Sunday in Tulsa. Did not start tonight. Taylor Morgan made his debut. That was the only change for Darren Powell from his starting 11 from the last game. As Fujiro will come on, he, of course, has had an impact this season. 1 goal in that opening game against S2. This is his 8th appearance of the season. 5 shots total, and another good night for Carlos Alvarez, who has been about as consistent as a midfielder as you want if you're Darren Powell.
Yeah, I don't think that there's any chance there that decision was made based on, man, it just, Carlos didn't give us what we needed. It was just a matter of, as strategies clearly as we thought they would go, it seems like OKC more than willing to play for the point. Meanwhile, San Antonio FC, they want to get 3 at home. So as you see personnel be changed out, we're seeing guys that are used to being advancing towards the goal and being players that try and get the offense going. Those are the substitutions that are being made.
A lot of attackers. Tayu, Fujiro now, Michael Reed still out there as well, too. So there's a lot of options for Darren Powell's club here in these closing minutes with, of course, a lengthy stoppage time expected to be added.
Fujiro trying to do a little bit too much there along the sideline, you know, coming in, just everybody wants to make that immediate impact rather than kind of slide into it.
The funny thing about Fujiro is that he was a natural defender playing college at High Point. He's been converted into a attacking forward and almost a striker here playing in San Antonio.
Well, you think about how many lineups are kind of those variable lineups across professional soccer, and a guy that can be a jack of all trades or a guy that can be converted into, I know you do this, but can you do this as well? That's going to serve Fujiro and therefore San Antonio FC.
For a moment, it looked like a throw was going to be awarded to San Antonio FC. Rafa Castillo went to go get the ball, but it was clearly off of Frank Tayu here on the attack. So we'll get, in fact, a foul and a free kick awarded here, as Michael Harris will take it. He, of course, of the acrobatic somersault throw-in. Delivers this one up ahead to the top of the 18 of San Antonio FC, and then data play by Greg Cochran, but looked like it went off the attacker of Timo Pitter. It did, and a throw-in for San Antonio FC. And Tayu draws the foul.
Also getting some lobbying here towards the end of the half and before the end of the game. Because one call could be the difference here. One chance at a free kick or not being awarded a free kick can be all the difference.
Harris, Pitter, and looking to make the run. Some opportunities here. Ryden trying to stay on side here now. Stephen McCarthy. You know, Jeff,
great job by McCarthy on that.
Jeff, we said Koenig got red carded. It was not Koenig. In fact, it was Cody Andrews, 26, who got red carded in this game because Koenig was just upfield there playing on the attack.
Well, that's interesting. It was Koenig that was making the move heading towards the door. So
he's right there.
Maybe he thought he was the guy that got the red card and had to be brought back. And when we were looking at, you know, so many other things that were going on.
It's not Andrews. He's right there, too. So I frankly couldn't tell you who then received the red card. There's certainly 10 men on the field here for Energy FC. Castillo. So incorrectly, as Michael Reed will draw the foul from about 25, 26 yards out here, and a free kick for San Antonio FC. Danny Koenig was not thrown out of this game.
No, he was not.
Unless somebody slipped a number 9 and went on the field.
You're right. Highly unlikely. All right, so it was their captain, Michael Thomas. And Dan, just for our own benefit, Koenig number 9, Thomas number 8. So my point is we were close. We were 1 digit away from getting it right.
Meanwhile, very dangerous spot here for Rafa Castillo.
And with Alvarez out, it was definitely going to be Rafa taking this kick.
And just missed as he gave it a go.
That was the right move. That was absolutely the right move. It kind of knuckled a little too. That was a hard look at this point in the game, especially, I think, for Lorendi.
Rafa, who scored from distance against Tulsa, was close on that occasion as Sabatier is going to take out Miguel Salazar here in the 88th minute.
So Miggy coming out. Get another guy that could be a scoring option, scoring threat. And Dan, I'll say again, I like what Rafa did there. I think that he had to look at it. You know that we talked about it earlier, that when we come to set pieces, when we're talking about free kicks, a lot of the times it's Carlos Alvarez and Rafa Castillo that are right there trying to, make the defense think, all right, who's going to be taking this kick? But with Carlos being substituted, it obviously had to go to Rafa. And, sometimes it can tick off your teammates that, you're the one that just calls your own number. But when you have that kind of look, that's absolutely the right way to go there.
Palacios. Fajero turns. And not as
look.
wide as it may have looked initially off of Fajero's foot.
Another good look. And Dan, as we reach the 90th minute here, there's going to be so much added time that I feel like we're a lot further into the half. There's still a lot of minutes for San Antonio FC to try and get the 1 goal of this game.
6 minutes of stoppage time is going to be
surprised
added
it's not
on.
more.
Well, again, that's actually 6 minutes was exactly the time in between the dust-up, which occurred in the 68th minute, and we didn't begin playing again until the 74th minute. So
right.
that probably makes sense why it's 6 minutes added on total.
Yeah, I thought that there was going to be in a minute before we even got to that point, though. So I thought we might have been looking at 7 or 8. But still, 6 minutes.
That's a lot of time.
Yeah.
So, again, Michael Thomas, the captain, Josh Ford, the captain, both red carded in this game tonight.
So maybe, maybe Marachi, the ref, kind of really trying to equal things out. Not only am I going to get players out here and go 1 per team, but I'm going to make the 2 captains be the 2 guys. Although with Josh Ford, you could be the most diehard San Antonio FC fan to think that the way he came up, the way that he shoved, the way that it was right in front of the ref, there's just no way you're not getting a red in that spot.
We are in stoppage time here now in the 91st minute. 90 minutes have elapsed, no score. San Antonio FC is trying to stay unbeaten for a 5th straight game in USL play. They had the 1-1 draw in Portland before running off 3 consecutive wins, as Lorendi will settle on this one from Cody Andrews. It's interesting, Jeff, because there was no question about it. It was certainly Koenig that was there in front on that dust-up that it made you wonder that, why wasn't it Koenig? But you're right. It's very possible that he just took it out on both the captains.
Yeah. And there was, I could have sworn it was Highland, but now based on the fact that obviously single-digit jerseys throw me off of what I'm seeing even on replay, Dan, but I thought it was Highland that actually had tackled Josh Ford after the shove had happened, but it could have been Michael Thomas, so it could have been a number of things.
We'll take a look at it again in case you missed it. As Josh Ford, in establishing position there, was Danny Koenig in front, and he shoves Koenig right there. And then
now here's a tackle, and that might have been Michael Thomas. That actually might have been Thomas because Highland has lighter hair, so.
Lorendi will take this one for OKC as we've played the first 90 seconds here of stoppage time with about 4.5 minutes or so remaining. Scoreless game. But as you saw, not without the fireworks, and there's actually been some fireworks that have been of the soccer variety in this game too. It has not just all been the physical play and the after the whistle play, so to speak. Both teams have had their chances. San Antonio FC with their 3-game winning streak right now, looking to make it 4 and looking to jump into a playoff spot here. A draw would not get them to it. They would remain 1 point back of OKC Energy FC for that last playoff spot.
Although, Dan, I think it warrants mentioning, because I know that the USL is obviously a new league for San Antonio fans. There's still a lot of season left to be played. So if this was September, that the ramifications of potentially only coming away with a point rather than 3 would be more significant. I don't think San Antonio FC would be happy with a point tonight, especially based on the way that they played in the first half. But on the other hand, we aren't looking at a situation where this is, a season buster for SAFC. There's entirely too much soccer left. And I guess the flip of that would be, even if they did get the 3 points tonight, that hardly locks anything up for them.
And in stoppage time, San Antonio FC will get their first corner of the night. Looked like Stephen McCarthy, meanwhile, was cramping up back in the midfield, and I think Sam McBride is going to try to quickly come in here on a substitute. And
this is really unfortunate, Dan, because McCarthy's one offensive strength is his aerial game, so not having a big body to go to, especially on the one corner kick of this game, that's bad. That's the worst timing possible for SAFC.
But we do know Sam McBride, who many have said he might have the biggest head on the team. This is a spot, though, where he shines as well. Did score his only goal, which did not come in USL play, but came in the Open Cup game in Des Moines, on a header inside the box on a corner. As this one's delivered by Castillo, going up Tayu and over the crossbar, back down and cleared away from danger.
But San Antonio FC still has a chance to get something going here.
Lofted in Lorendi's direction, and he'll make the fair catch. And that was San Antonio FC's best chance of the night.
Absolutely.
In the 94th minute, or the 4th minute of stoppage time, whichever your pleasure. Pitter and Koenig, did he stay onside? He did. The ball went behind him, and goal kick will be awarded.
Well, great opportunity here, Dan. You got Tayu right there.
I said went over the crossbar. Actually went off the left post and ricocheted out.
Good opportunity. I think maybe the one where also Taylor Morgan had the feed from JJ in the first half and just couldn't shift his body the way to really turn it into a great scoring opportunity. That one also stands out to me, Dan, as maybe the best opportunities that SAFC has gotten in this game.
Castillo kept it alive, but it'll result in a goal kick here as we've roughly a minute or so left in this game here. And for OKC Energy FC, if the rule of thumb is to go on the road and get points, well, they're just seconds away from accomplishing that. And for San Antonio FC, though, although it may not be 3 full points, continuing an unbeaten streak just as equally is important.
You take it, but I think that the way that they played, I know that Darren Powell, the first thing that he'll say after this game is over, that they had their chances and it really felt, based on the way that they played, that they should have 3.
You talked about a lot of season left. In fact, tonight is officially the beginning of the second half of the season. This is game number 16 of 30 for San Antonio FC. As Harris, the long throw in and knocked away as Sebetarier racing back after to the outside with Danny Gonzalez, and he pushes it away.
The ball there.
And could not keep it alive.
I was wondering if they got close along that sideline, if just based on the effort, there might be a benefit of the doubt call there, Dan. But after the fireworks that we saw tonight, it's unfortunate that this is the last time these two teams are going to play each other in the regular season.
Referee Marakachi took a look at his watch just a moment ago. Takes a look again as we've gone past the allotted 6 minutes here of stoppage time, as you can see. And that is it. The whistle blows. And for all of that, San Antonio FC and OKC Energy FC play to a 0-0 draw tonight here at Toyota Field.
Well, I think, again, San Antonio FC, especially based on how they played in the first half, I don't think that they're going to be thrilled with this result. But, Dan, again, it's a long season in the USL, and perhaps the one thing that they can look at is when you consider, especially that the last time that they played OKC, that it resulted in a loss at home, at least you've got something to build on because you end up with the point.
One more time, this was the story of the night, the fight that took place in the 68th minute. Koenig and Josh Ford. Josh Ford ejected, and there you are right,
it was
Michael Thomas, you're right, coming in, slide tackling Josh Ford. Captain against captain malpractice in this game here tonight was the story of this one. The game that finishes in a scoreless draw.
And also very interesting as we're looking out on the pitch right now, Dan, there's still some talking with the refs. You've got Taylor Morgan out there for San Antonio FC, but also head coach of OKC is out there as well, as whatever decision was made, maybe not the most popular. Now, Darren Powell is part of that conversation, so as much as this game could be about a game that ends up 0-0, what's really going to be talked about for fans, players, coaches, people that follow the league is the fight that led to both captains being ejected.
San Antonio FC looks to continue their winning ways next Saturday, July 16th. The first MLS2 team visits Toyota Field. First place, Vancouver Whitecaps 2. Tickets start at just $10. Go to sanantoniofc.com. For Jeff Sheen and our entire crew, I'm Dan Weiss. Our final from Toyota Field, San Antonio FC 0. OKC Energy FC 0. The following has been a presentation of the United Soccer League and Spurs Sports and Entertainment. So long, everybody.
When it needs to be ultra exciting, high flying, non-stop action, San Antonio FC Soccer's got you covered. When it needs to be high performing, hard working, high tech, super safe, built for comfort, and surprisingly affordable, Holt Cat has got you covered. With best-in-class cat heavy equipment, engines, generators, and more, plus legendary service and support, and the largest parts inventory and distribution network in Texas. Kick it into high gear with Holt Cat.
So we know HEB Texas Tough products are stronger than ever.
But are they stronger than Coyote? We put some to the test.
Like thicker food bags to keep all your snacks safe.
Stronger trash bags that'll do the heavy lifting.
And thicker, heavier foil that stands up to whatever you throw at it.
Ooh, denied.
HEB Texas Tough products, made to be tougher than ever.
You go, mate.
Good job, Coyote.
It's really quite simple. To see results, do the work. Focus on the goals. Push it to the limit hour after hour. That's how you rise to the next level. You can be a professional athlete or an insurance or financial professional, perfecting your shot or protecting your client's future. The rules are the same. It takes passion and dedication every single day. So when it's time, you will be ready.
This copyrighted telecast of the United Soccer League may not be retransmitted, rebroadcast, or reproduced without the express written consent from the United Soccer League.